the mainstream cover or do you want like the not safe for work cover? And I was like, how unsafe is the not safe for work? And I checked it. I was like, very unsafe. Okay.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of the Loan Limit Podcast. I'm your host, Chelsie, and this is your host, Jay.
Hey.
And we gotta say thank you for being here. You know, we're on season 2, so we appreciate everybody who tunes in. Jay, the internet. You know, let me not even start that way because I feel like lately I've just been starting every episode with the internet. But that's where it goes down.
You can't beef with the whole internet, Chelsie. You can't beef with the whole internet.
I don't have beef with the internet, okay? I want to make it very clear.
Today's beef with people on the internet.
Today's episode has nothing to do with me, okay?
Starting off strong.
All right, so I was on the internet, and Abby Jimenez, who is a really well-known romance author, got a comment, and it made me start thinking that maybe I'm missing something.
Okay, when you say she got a comment, like, what do you mean?
So she posted, I guess, a video. I didn't see the original post, but she was talking about how she typically will write the first draft in her phone notes. Right?
Okay.
And someone commented and was very upset to hear about this news.
Okay.
Let me read the exact comment because
How are you upset about how someone has a system? Okay.
It says, don't write books on a phone. Phone is in all capitals. I think that's the important part here that we want to stress.
I feel like that's what triggered you.
The literary quality will not be good. Sweetheart, it's a first draft. What?
Okay.
I'm confused.
Okay.
So I'm curious, Jay. What are your thoughts on writing a first draft on an electronic as I hold mine in my hand for those of you listening and not watching?
I feel like we're going to accidentally do a deep dive into how I have things organized. Okay. So I am a person that likes to have very efficient notes. And I mean that in the sense of like, I can reach them, I can have them, they're there when I need them. So I quickly adopted to digital notes and digital reminders, all those things like that.
Yeah.
It's very funny because if you have ever worked with me, you've been in my office or in my like physical space when I'm working, you know I'm a big like Post-it person.
Yes.
And I literally use Post-its in the sense of like, it's something to write down. I use Post-its almost like a to-do list or like a little reminder. And it's stuff that it's like, okay, cool, I need to do this, or I need to know it, but I don't need to know this always.
Right.
And so that's why it's on a Post-it. So I can see it, boom, 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 when it's done, rip it off, throw it out somewhere. But anything that's not that, so anything that's like intellectual property, anything that's like of my mind's fruition, I like to have that digitally because I want it to be able to live and be accessible on multiple different fronts, multiple different spaces. Like even the notes I do for this podcast, I have very much so digitally so I can catch it. Because sometimes if I can be reading in one space, I can read it in another space, and I want to make sure I always have my notes accessible, like no matter what. So I think it's just a process. We live in a modern world. If she's comfortable, like you said, doing a first draft on your phone, like that's fine. You can format it and stuff. And even for like novelists, like you can, like the format is you. So it's less like stringent as like screenwriting and stuff, which is where I'm accustomed to. And there's usually like programs for that. So it's like, yeah, then you kind of usually write, like for me, I usually like write my scripts on my laptop. Sometimes I'll cheat and use my iPad if I'm like on the go or if I'm traveling and I don't have my laptop with me. But then I almost finish it in my laptop. But for anything that's like notes, organization, thoughts, like just getting it out, like just do also whatever works for you. So if she as a writer can do it on her phone,
here's my thing,
it works for her. Like, how are you dictating someone else's workflow?
But here's the thing that cracks me up is like, sweetheart, you're not getting the draft that's on her phone. Like, it's gonna go through revisions and editors.
It's gonna go through iterations, yeah.
Like, where she puts down the first thought or idea is not going to control the quality of the book in any way. Plus, all the revisions and stuff, they might not be on a phone, but they're on a computer. So what does one technological device have to do with the quality that the other one doesn't. Like, sweetheart, are you lost?
Yeah.
Were you bored? Did you just want to start a fire for no reason? Like,
yeah, no, that's strange. That to be like the quality,
yeah,
like, and I get it's something different if you're like, oh, I'm writing this book on my phone and then I'm publishing it like from my notes app. Like that, I feel is weird. But
yes.
like you're saying, it's like it's getting the thoughts out and whatever. Yeah, I think however anybody's work process is different. Like there's some people that can only write if they're sitting at a laptop, like at a desk facing
right
a lake or something. And then there's other people that they'd be like, oh, I get my best writing done when I'm on the go. So like when they're commuting, if they're in the back of a car or train or whatever, but on a flight, I know people that can write when they're pacing, like they'll do the audio and they'll write out stuff like that and then go and format it and stuff like. So everyone's workflow is different. Everyone's brain processes differently. The creative flows differently. So it's whatever works best for you. I am very pro digital notes and all those things like that. It has quite literally saved my brain in a way.
Yeah.
Because I'll have like a random thought here and a random note there. And I'm like, I need this note somewhere else. And having it digitally in the cloud everywhere helps me significantly.
I think the thing that caught my eye was the fact that they weren't saying like, oh, don't do it on your phone in case you lose it. They were talking about the quality. And that's where I was just like, is it me? Am I the problem?
That honestly sounds so like projection.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just be like, I feel like you tell it on yourself, friend.
You know, that's fair.
I feel like you tell it on yourself. You probably wrote a whole book in your phone and it wasn't good. So you were like, this applies to everybody.
Absolutely. I did have a question for you because I was on the internet, but not on the social media internet. Okay. I was just buying books. So it's a different internet.
Okay. A different internet.
So I am going to Romance Out West, the Utah Book Festival. And I was doing some pre-orders because I know that if I see a book I want and I get there and I can't have it, I'm going to be sad. Okay. I'm going to look like a kid who spilled their ice cream.
Okay.
And I started realizing that not everyone puts out like a hot guy cover and like a safe for work cover.
Okay.
And personally,
I'm so glad we're talking about this. Oh my God. Go ahead.
Personally, while I know the pages inside are going to be steamy, that's not what I want on my bookshelf.
Right.
And it got me thinking, like, should authors be required to offer a safe for work cover? Or is it just us making demands out of someone, especially indie authors who are like, listen, I'm just happy to have my book published. You get what you get. Yeah.
I don't think it should be a requirement.
Okay.
When you start requiring things, that makes me feel, ugh. I don't like a mandate. I mean, you know this from knowing me personally and from working with me that like, as soon as you tell me to do something, I'm like, So I don't like it being a requirement. I think it's obviously like a nice thing to do as an option. But I will say, especially like I'm more on the indie side, I think it's kind of just like you should always have the safe option being first, and then you can do a special edition or something like that later.
Ooh,
like I was actually supporting an indie author, like buying directly from their website, which I try to do whenever possible. And the book series was like digital. And so it's like, okay, cool, I'll get digital. And so it was like, oh, do you want like the mainstream cover or do you want like the not safe for work cover? And I was like, how unsafe is the not safe for work? And I checked it. I was like, very unsafe. Okay. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, let's go with the mainstream version. And so I remember, I was actually talking to a friend recently and I was just like, hey, she was like, I've never read smut. Like, I want to get into it. And she was like, but I like to read books like physically. She was like, can I take it to work? And I was just like, yes. And we talked about this in the past episode in terms of like book covers and how that's kind of changed as generations of readers have gone through. Yeah. And like, yeah, Fabio on the cover with like a shipwreck and the shirt and the flowing is not the standards now. Thank God.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more options. I personally feel like, especially when you come like on the indie author side, when you don't have like a ton of releases and you don't have a ton of options, I would just love if like the mainstream version is always your like go-to, and then if you have the capacity, or if you want to do, you can do a special edition, or if you are from like a publishing house, or you know, if you have a marketing, or if you have like a bigger support behind you, like drop both, and that way the readers can decide which ones they want.
Follow-up question. Of course, my girl, I love her to death, but this is her one fatal flaw. S.J. Tilly does it this way. The hot guy cover is the paperback version, and then the hardback version is the safe for work version. How do you feel about that? Because as a person who loves a good paperback copy, the way I have to wait until she decides to grace me with a special edition paperback of the safe for work covers, like I would just be like, you know what, SJ, I want to support you, but you making it hard for me, girl.
That it's so frustrating because both of our physical book preference is paperback, and it is so difficult because, like, as you can see, like, even on my favorite shelf, I have one. I have one, and it was because it was just like, it was the only book. I bought it years ago, and it messes up the heights of everything. It doesn't fold well.
This thick book, paperback. Just okay. This is like, I don't care the size. I just want the paperback. Okay, is that like, that's really all I'm asking for in this moment?
Yeah. But listen, into like the case of SJ, it's a decision. You're like, I'm not gonna be gonna try.
I could feel the pages, and I was like, you know what? That is a post-recording situation.
It's a decision, and obviously because it's not your preference and not my preference either, it's unfortunate because, sometimes the hot guy covers are so annoying. It's not even about...
But sometimes they also are messing up what I see in my head.
I don't want the image. Like, let me read it and provide it myself, please. So, yeah. Like, I remember... This is the one... there's a couple of times I think the image is helpful. And in my case, not that experience with reading fantasy when we did Legends and Lattes. And I, like, could not I could not conjure the correct image. And then I was like, oh, the cover is the image. And that, like, super helped me cheat. So it's like, there's a couple of times I'm like, okay, I get it as a... But any other time, like, no. I think... as a reading option, and obviously we don't exclusively read romance, but a lot of it we do, and it's obviously having a way more acceptable moment in mainstream life, which is amazing. But there are definitely some sensitivities to people not wanting to know what you're reading and stuff like that, especially if you're in public and you have a physical copy. Like, obviously if you're reading digitally, like, the cover is only seen for like a second if you're actively reading it.
Right.
So, but I know I've definitely been like, and this is definitely my New York days being on the train, be like, oh, let me start a new book. And it'd be like, can't open that cover right now. It's always when you have like the little old lady sitting next to you, and it's like, miss, mind your eyes, pay attention to yourself.
I have no shame in what I'm reading, but I also don't want to like pull up to my gate at the airport and just be like, oh, let me read, and it's just someone's 6-pack on display.
It's very interesting because, like, if you talk to most romance readers, is how we feel. Like, it's like, we love reading. It's not a thing, but it's more so just like out of respect for you, because and in that case, stop eye hustling, but that's a whole other thing. But
if I walk by you and you got a man with a 6-pack on the front of your cover, like, I'm gonna be like, so what you reading over there, friend?
So what we reading? Are we friends? Exactly. Yeah. No, I think it definitely could be a collective experience when you're in the right environment. I don't think it should be required. But I think it is nice that if an author wants to have a more imaginative cover option, that they just also give a more blander, standard, like, public consumption option. Yeah. So that way you can choose your own adventure as a reader.
I support it.
Yeah.
Speaking of choose your own adventure, we chose an adventure today, Jay. We did. Jay. Wait, Jay, you branched out and you read a thriller.
I feel like y'all should be so proud of me. So proud of me. I can't confirm because I didn't do the deep dive to double check, but I think it might have been my first thriller.
Yes. But that got me thinking about today's book rec, Jay.
Okay.
I like how you're nervous, but you're already prepared, so it's fine. This book has a plot twist in it, shall we say?
Yes.
For some of us just said, I don't know if I twisted or turned. So for today's book, correct, Jay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for some books with a good plot twist in it. What you got?
Yes. So it's interesting. So the way I kind of define a plot twist to me is like when I have like an audible gasp moment in a book, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, TV shows, everything too. Yeah, but like for me, when I think of like a plot twist, it's like, oh, I did not see that coming kind of vibes, which I feel like is the definition of it. But just like the way I respond is very much like audible gasp. So interesting enough, I mean, I feel like you guys can get a good sense of my book taste by now. You know that doesn't always happen in my wheelhouse of what I read. Like for me, the plot twist is just like in a relationship in the book, you know, which isn't really like audible gas. It's more so just like feelies or not kind of thing. So I had to do a little bit of a deep dive to find my plot twist. And so my first one is actually Remember This by Shay Bugs. I can't say too much about it because the nature of the book, I guess. But but I can tell you like the beginning, and it's kind of similar to the blurb, and then you can just kind of infer and do what you want from that. Mm-hmm. You have a married couple that are having some relationship issues, and the wife gets like fed up with the husband and throws a wine bottle at him, and he doesn't see it coming and doesn't duck, which sounds so victim blaming, but he doesn't duck and gets hit in the head with the bottle.
Naturally.
And gets like amnesia. So I think they like decided to get like a divorce, and then he gets amnesia and doesn't remember this. And so the book Remember This, and this is all like happens pretty early on. So he like wakes up and like remembers his wife and their relationship like when they first got together. Mm-hmm. So he's like, oh yeah, we're in love, like whatever. She's just like, I can't stand you. And then the doctors are just like, well, the help with amnesia, you should just do what you would regularly be doing, and that would help like cue in all the memories. She's whatever.
Like, regularly I would be leaving him. So
exactly. So it was a bit of a plot twist if you read through it, and like I said, very different. It was, I don't know if I would classify it as a romance per se. I think it's more so on like the rom-com side of things. Well, I think romantic comedies are romance. So yeah, but it's more on the humorous side. It's not necessarily like the love.
It's a comedy.
Love side. It's more the humorous side, which I mean, as you can tell with the beginning. So yeah, and the plot twist in that had me kind of going, what? Okay, I so wish I could talk more about it, but I can't because I don't want to give anything away. Okay. My next one is The Echelon by Jillian Dodd. You've heard me rec this books in this series before. It's the Spy Girl series. This is the last book in the series. Read them in order. Don't let Chelsie tell you to do what you want. Read them in order.
Do what you want.
Don't know. Read them in order.
Live. That spells live.
No, read them in order. I don't even know if I can tell you about it because, like, just know this series, but this book specifically is where I started using the term book shook, because that's how I was after I read it. I was wrecked. Just, oh my gosh. And so if you've heard me talk about the series before, it is a young woman that is a spy. She's trying to save, in my mind, it's a real country, but in reality, it's a fictional country with a fictional prince and all these other things. Politics ensues. Yeah, like, oh, so many things. But there's this one thing. Okay, in this book, also, like, the Olympics are involved. So that makes it, like, even bigger stakes, right? There is this one thing that I remember when I read it. I was at work when I was reading it because, listen, I was at work and I was doing my job.
Bring it back,
However,
girl. Bring it back.
The book was just so, like, juicy. I could not, like, I was like, I have to know what happens. That was probably worse because I knew what happened. And I was like, I can't even work the rest of the day. Like, I literally just started pacing the whole office. And they were like, I was like, I just need a minute to process. I was so shook. So read them in order. Amazing series. But that was probably one of the biggest, like, plot twist moments I've ever come across in a book. Because I don't read plot twists that often. So it hit me very hard.
I love me a good twist, okay? I love when something happens that I did not see coming. I want that moment. I want it. I need it. So my first one, all right, and I want to remind everybody that Jay and I do not read the same books. My first one is going to be Fourth Wing by Big Bex, Rebecca Yarros.
Okay.
It is about a girl who fights her way into a war college full with dragons and enemies. There's lots of attacks on her life. If you know the book, you know the book at this point.
It's like really popular, right?
It is insanely popular. Millions of copies sold. I can't even explain. My coworker was like, oh, you're getting into reading. You should read it. Like, just read it. I was like, all right, cool, whatever. The last couple of chapters is where the biggest twist, in my opinion, comes in. Mm-hmm. And I was at the gym reading the physical copy mm-hmm. to the point that my family had to come and be like, are you going to work out? So I was like, fine. Ugh. I put the book down and I went through that workout just being like, just get it done so you can finish reading.
So you go finish reading, yes. Finish your life so you can go back to your book motivation is so real.
But herein lies the problem, because I was in a room full of people who had never read the book, and I read the last page and found out a plot twist, and I'm going to reenact what happened. Okay? Here I am on the last page. I read what I read, and my head said, What? What do you mean? What? Huh? And that was the final sentence. The plot twist was the final sentence of the book.
I don't know if that would make me I feel like that would make me so mad. Because I feel like I would just be having, everyone yell and scream and nowhere to go.
It was so late at night that my coworker had already gone to sleep, so I couldn't even talk to them about it. So I just had to sit there while everyone else finished their workout. And I just had to think it out. Okay? Listen, if you're into dragons, you're into plot twists, it's a good book. It's one of those books where, all right, the hype is aggressive, but I understand mm-hmm. the hype. Mm-hmm. It's worth it. Now.
I've said this before, when a book makes you write, thank you.
That's how I feel about my second book, to be honest.
Okay.
My second book is called The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. Mm-hmm. I almost didn't go to a Halloween party so I could finish reading the book.
I actually remember this.
I literally spent the majority of that book going, am I the problem? Am I crazy? Is anyone else in the room seeing what I'm seeing? Right? Mm-hmm. And you get the plot twist, well, one of them, about halfway through the book. And the moment the twist came into play, Jay, I sat there, jaw to the floor, just shooketh. It is such a good one.
I have not read this book.
You cannot read it.
But I know, but I can co-sign it because I experienced it through you, and then another one of my friend read it too, and she was like, "Oh my god, yeah." So it's not a JV safe book.
No, but I did give you the full story in our voice messages.
Yes, but I got the voice note list of it, so I feel like I experienced it with you, which makes it.
And you know,
so I know good. All the things, even though I haven't. So if you want to read it because it's good. So I've heard.
That is true. You did read it sort of adjacent. I gave you the synopsis.
Experienced the essence of the book fully.
Yes.
It's like sparkling water. The flavor in it, I got the essence. I know what's happening.
Something.
I know the source material.
Let's talk about a book that you did read, though. Because I did get you to read what did they call this? My books are attacking me, y'all.
Also, you scared me because I was like, wait, what book? What? Okay.
A completely gripping psychological suspense. Okay? That's what we read.
I feel like that's marketing, though. What is the actual, category?
It's a suspense. It's a thriller.
Okay, so suspense and thriller are the same things?
They put them in together. It's like a slash. But anyway, if you can't see this because you're listening to us, the book we read this week was The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
I would just like for the record to say that I feel like I got swindled into reading this book. Chelsea's gonna refute this because she's gonna be like, "We picked it together."
No. Let's Jay, since you out here swindling this BS to people, let's be real. We sat here for like an hour. I gave you 50 million options. I even offered to change the genre, and you said no. This sounds interesting. So there was no swindling of any sort here, okay? You picked with open eyes.
I feel like there was leading of the witness.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm gonna say this right now. I have no idea what I rated this book. I need us to do a full breakdown, and I need to hear yours first, so I know what I rated it. Like, I know rating is not supposed to be like a group project, but I need this. I need us so I can process my experience. Like,
okay.
Yes. Also, I just want to point out, I know exclusively read romance, but I do distinctly remember, like, at some point at the beginning of the book, reaching out to Chelsie and be like, is there romance in this? And I was like, I'm confused. And I was like, I'm looking for the MMC.
She was like, where's the romance come into play? And I was like, oh, sweetheart, there's no romance. Yeah. There's none.
It was so funny because I don't exclusively read romance, but it is predominantly what I read. And, like, I think I was like 30-something% into the book at this point, and I was just like, have we met him yet? Like, I don't... I was like, who am I supposed to be rooting for? I'm confused.
No one, apparently, if you got to the end of the book. All right, let's start at the beginning. We've got Sarah and Adam, a lovely couple in the DC.
The Morgans.
Sure. They're in the DC area. Sarah is a high-powered defense attorney, and Adam is a PAB. Sorry.
Accurate.
I think his official title is he's a writer, but if you ask me, he's a PAB. And if you don't know what that means...
This is why we're friends, because my notes on Adam are not kind.
First off, they're struggling in their marriage because Sarah is not making time for Adam, and Adam is boo-hooing because the woman who's keeping a roof over his head and food in his belly is not making time for him. And I'm confused on why you would be upset that the moneymaker is making the money, but hey, none of my business.
This is not book specific, but I just want to, like, do a little... If you're in a relationship when you feel like someone isn't making time for you, and it's because they have responsibilities that is difficult for them to do so, do what you can to alleviate some of those responsibilities. That's why there's no time.
That part.
So instead of you whining and crying and running to your little house that she bought you,
That she bought you.
Like, I was looking at him and I was just like, why aren't you taking dinner to her office? Why aren't you like, hey, let's do a coffee date? Like, I was looking at him and I was like, there's so many things you could be doing. What are you doing?
So here's where I first didn't like Adam, and it's going to be petty, and I know it's going to be petty. But he goes to take the trash out and notices that there's a card in there from his mother that Sarah has conveniently thrown out. First off, the note itself was disrespectful. But then to read Adam taking the card out of the trash that it's been in, at least overnight, and then put it on the fridge. I literally said, can we really trust someone who puts trash on the fridge?
That's a good note. I forgot about that.
I just said
that's so dismissive of his wife's feelings from jump.
Also, you just put germs on the fridge, the thing that you open to get your food from, all right?
I feel like with all the things that we saw ensue, I don't think that ever crossed their mind.
Okay, but in all fairness, this is before any of that happened, okay?
This is true. I just feel like demographic-wise, that never shocked me. I said, okay.
So Adam is taking off for their cabin in the woods.
Yeah, their lake house.
Their lake
Honestly,
house.
though, I know I didn't see this lake house, but I feel like I saw it. Oh my god, I feel like it's gorgeous.
And Sarah promises to try to make it out, even if it's just for a day, but she's in the middle of a very big case. And she has a history of saying, I'm going to try, and then not making it. So Adam goes, and he works, I'm going to put that in quotes, on his manuscript. And while he's
yeah, because he
working...
spent a day writing, just staring at an empty page. And I don't want to have any judgment or, like, your writing process is your writing process, as we talked about earlier. But if you're a writer and you have everything set up for you to write, in the sense, and I mean this in the sense of, like, he's writing not even to support his household. It's not like, oh, I have to write because, like, he's not writing to support his household. He has all of the freedom to
He's doing
creative.
it for funsies.
And he's not doing, oh my, like...
So his side
I was
piece...
irritated by Adam very early, and it just exasperated throughout the book.
I have a note that
His
says,
side piece.
even if Adam is innocent, straight to jail. Straight to jail. So his side piece, Kelly, shows up. And they make love in this club. And decide that they are for each other, which means they are for the streets, in my opinion. But Adam decides he is going to be with Kelly. That is the woman he wants. They have a...
Can I even just say this? Like, the whole Kelly and Adam thing disturbed me on a molecular level. Because you talked about how much you loved your wife, and how you met her, and all these things like that. And then you go, oh yes, here comes Kelly. She's gonna walk in and she's just gonna like come on her, like go on her knees for me. And I was just like, but you guys don't really have a relationship. Like, situationship as best. You're married, she's married. You guys are both unavailable to each other, but you can service each other in a very specific way as needed. Your life together isn't real. And the way he's just like, oh yeah, no, because she understands me and all these other things. And I'm just like, sir, she's a waitress. And again, I'm in no way belittling her job, but I just mean in the sense of like I talk about in terms of Sarah, in terms of like the weight of responsibility.
Let's
she
be
can
real.
All these things that are carefree and all these things that are fun and all these things that are what, because she just goes to work and she goes home. And I was just never going on, but like
he was never going to be with her. He was never going to be with her because at the end of the day, who's going to keep the lights on in the house?
That was my thing when he made the decision to go to Kelly, because I was like, sir, who's funding your life? You don't make money, and she don't make money. I mean, she does, but not enough to like live.
The notes that he left her, being like, "You're the end for me. I choose you." But oh yeah, be out before the cleaners get here. Like
that. When I told you, when I saw that, oh yeah, be out by 9 a.m. I laughed so hard. I laughed so hard, and I was just like, "Sir, I just."
It didn't make sense.
I'm trying to think if there's a point in this book that I ever liked Adam. Like, I feel like everything I learned about him made me not like him more. Like, every single time, I was like, ugh.
So Adam leaves, and he makes it back to Sarah. Mm-hmm. And Sarah looks at him sleepily and says, "I want to have a baby with you."
Mm-hmm.
And then mere hours after...
No shower!
Hold, please. Mere hours after being with Kelly with no protection, he then tries to make a baby with his wife. And convinces himself that he did.
Oh yeah, she's gonna...
That's our baby in
delusion.
There. And I was like,
it's delusion.
Are you tapped
also,
in the head?
And then to wake up the very next morning and being like, oh, yesterday I chose Kelly, but now that my wife wants to have a kid with me, I choose her. I'm going to prioritize our marriage because I love her. And I was
love her?
That was the point where I was just like, this man is delusional. Like, he's
tapped in delusional. The head.
And then honestly, when you meet his mom, you're just like, apple tree. I get it.
So he's in his bliss. His wife has gone off to work already. And that bliss doesn't last long because he gets arrested immediately.
Now, question for you.
Mm-hmm.
It was it was like the sheriff and the deputy from Virginia.
Yes.
That are at his door. Why wasn't the local police the one arresting him?
That's a great question. Nothing legally happens correctly in this book, so I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Because you don't just walk into someone's backyard and arrest.
If that's correct or not?
Like, you would think they would call the local and then do a transfer.
Or at least have them there. Yeah, so I was just
you
like,
drove.
Especially when they took him into the station, they took him, like, I mean, technically DC isn't a state, I get that, but, like, you crossed a lot, like, you, like, state, I was like, this.
But you also drove
traffic-ish.
2 hours, bro. It was 2 hours.
So they say it's 2 hours, but I don't think it's actually 2 hours because multiple times people made the drive in just over an hour.
This is like going back to Rhythms Blues, how everything was 20 minutes magically away. Like, I'm just... Apparently, I have to suspend Delulu no matter where we are located, okay?
Gotcha. Okay, but no, that was like my thing when I was just like, I've never been arrested, but I was like, I feel like you can't come from another town over to arrest this person without the local people involved. Because also, and so this was also interesting to me, that Sarah and also later on with Bob, like, they never sued the police department because they were very, very brutal in multiple instances.
Yes, Jay, but we know why they didn't.
Yes, we know why. But still, I was very much like, and I was like, this feels so uncomfortable. And I was just like, it was also very strange. And this is just like, this is very much just like my experience as a Black woman. It was very, very strange to read like police brutality against a white person. Like, I was like, oh, this is, no, like, I kid you not. I was just like, this feels weird and gross in general because it's always weird and gross and there's really no reason for it. But in this instance, I was just like, does this really happen?
Which is funny.
Like, does this happen?
Because what flagged for me was, I literally said, yo, why is the Black deputy the aggressor? And then I said, oh, never mind. I found the backstory out. Never mind.
Yeah. That was my first thought too. And I was like, I don't love that. And I was like, okay. But yeah, like, Scott was unhinged multiple times. Even when they picked up Adam. Like, my thing is, again, justice system, whatever. I was like, you're technically innocent until proven guilty. They invaded his home because they crossed the threshold without saying all the things so, like, they weren't, because they were just asking questions. They didn't have a warrant at the time. They refused him. They stopped the door from getting closed, came in his place, and attacked him in his home. And I was like, that's a violation. But
no, it's not. I mean, like, okay, this sounds crazy, and I know it sounds crazy. Hear me out. They showed up to arrest him, but before they could, that's when he started wilding out. So he didn't give them a chance to say all the things that you're expecting them to say.
Okay.
And then they had...
And I did think that, like, at some point they could say that you're resisting arrest, because even Adam talks about, like, oh, you always tell people, like, don't fight, don't be an idiot. And then he was like, but then until you feel it. So, okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously this isn't, like, a law breakdown, but still, yeah. I just thought that was weird.
It was one of those things where I think it just happened so fast, and because Adam was being snooty, being like, I'm going to call my wife.
Oh, my God. He's so entitled.
Yeah.
He's so... Oh... I can't with Adam.
So while Adam is being arrested for the Bobby Schmurder of his side piece, Kelly, Sarah's at work and gets a visit from her bestie, Matthew, who I like to call a real one.
I love Matthew.
I'm not going to lie.
Matthew.
I thought Matthew was the suspect. I thought he was the criminal for a couple of chapters, because I was like, this is the perfect alibi. When he arrived? It was like the perfect alibi, like, oh, I'm just in town for work. And I was like, he did his girl a solid.
No, I love Matthew. Now, it's very interesting, and I will bring this up when we get to that part a little bit later, because I did suspect him of something, never Kelly, but I did suspect him of something. And then, like, immediately after, I was like, no, never mind.
I will say this book is written in a way where, like, you don't actually get clues to the crime. It's just written where everyone is suspicious.
Yeah, so I will say this. I thought Geneva, right? Geneva Rose is the author. I thought that she did a phenomenal job of writing this in a way that, like, I kept wanting to know more.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, and granted, this is not my regular genre, there was a point where I just tapped out and I was just like, I don't have any more suspicions left in me. Please stop giving me other things to think about. I just want to know what happens. Now, here's the thing. I'm specifically saying I don't read this genre often. So I want to point out that I enjoyed this read, but I did hit a wall at some point. And
I hit a wall. I hit a wall.
I was like, I can see how people that like to read this enjoy it because I was locked in for the ride. I did the same thing I did with Blood at the Root, where I was just like, I'm not reading this as a book. I'm watching the movie of the book in my mind. Like, I just watched the whole thing in my mind. It was that kind of experience for me. So I was just, like, locked in. I had a ton of notes. Like, oh, my God, I feel like I did a whole dissertation of this, like, crime. But I was along for the journey. Like, I thought pretty early on, I was like, I'm just going to have to cheat and find out what happens and then go back because I don't know if I can lock in. Geneva had me locked in for 66%. Look, organically. But then 66%, I hit a wall, and I was like, I can't meet any more suspects.
Like, my thing is, it's like, I was like, dang, girl, like, if you could just give me some clues on, like, things about the crime, I'd be cool. Like, I would just start trying to put the pieces together. But it was one of those things where it was like, I got to the end, and I just said, how did we get here? How did we
really?
Like, okay, but, like, not in the way that you would think. So let's just keep going and I'll break it down.
Okay. Yeah.
So we got Sarah. She's out here winning a big court case only to get a call that says her booski, her husband, is in the clink clink and she gotta go get him. And then she gets there just in time to watch her husband be pummeled by the husband of his side piece. And then is kind of flirting with the sheriff.
That was so weird. And I was just like, and so I was just like, is Sarah's reading this wrong? Am I reading this wrong? And this is when I started to question. I was like, is he the MMC? I was like, is this her second love? Like, that's why I got confused. Because I was just like, is she meeting her next husband now? I was so...
I know.
But that's me very, very romance minded. I was like, is he who I should be rooting for?
Trying to turn it into a Nicholas Sparks movie.
Word. I was like, oh, what disaster. One door closes and another door opens. Like, this is how you meet your next husband.
I get. So it becomes clear that Adam is not okay, and Adam's going to go to the hospital. So while they transport him, Sarah has the lovely pleasure of dealing with her monster-in-law.
Oh my god!
What's her name?
This woman,
Eleanor. Okay. Personally, I would have committed Bobby Schmurder if Eleanor was my mother-in-law. I'm gonna be very honest. I'm not gonna lie to you. To look your daughter-in-law in the eyes and say, "Well, if you were doing your wifely duty, my son would not be in this position. If you loved my son like you should, he wouldn't be on trial for Bobby Schmurder."
That, like, this woman, like, ugh, I can't. And this is why I say, like, apple and tree when it comes to Adam, because as you see how weak-minded and victim-filled Adam is and how things aren't really his fault and all these things like that, and oh, my life is so bad when it's, like, not.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, you're actively making choices that are putting you in the situation that you're putting yourself into. Mm-hmm. And then, like, when you meet Eleanor, you understand that he has probably never had to take accountability for anything in his life.
Never.
Life. And that's why he's the man that he is today.
And then to sit there and watch as your mother just poo-poos on your wife and everything she has worked so hard for without saying a single word. I was like, I want you to be up under the jail at this point, Adam, because You give PABs a bad name at this point.
For real. I was insulted.
So
can we talk about how they met for a second? Because I think we've read this flashback already at this point.
Yeah, the one how they met at the college party. And to be honestly, I was like, I feel like that should have been a clue that Sarah is not exactly who we all perceive her to be, because she spent the entire night being quiet and shy just to walk home and then drag him inside and ride the pony, is how I'll say it.
I hate that Jenny wanted to slay my mind right now.
How you think I got there?
Okay. Do you feel like Adam targeted Sarah at that party? The only reason I'm asking this is we know the man that Adam is now, like, through everything. And the way that they met, there is a little bit of an age gap. There is a little bit of, like, a personality difference. There's, like, they don't have a ton in common.
No.
And I feel like he kind of just, like, found the wallflower and was just like, yeah, that one. And I'm just like...
No, I don't think he targeted her. I think he lives in like that Snow White, get dressed by animals type of like Disney lifestyle, and just sort of made it into this like fairy tale moment. If anything, I think Sarah targeted him. Because like looking back on it now, knowing her childhood and her childhood traumas, we'll call them. Mm-hmm. She's like a sociopath. She's like a psychopath.
Oh, yes.
So it's like...
Yes. Literally, one of my notes is so funny. I'll read it like later on. But I was like, oh, snap.
So it's like, looking back on it now, if anyone was targeting someone, it was definitely Sarah targeting Adam and the money and the name that he comes from. Because his dad was like a big hedge fund dude. So like... Yeah. If anything, that was a come up for her. Like, that was a step in the right direction for her on her path. Okay.
I love that perspective. The reason why I might have thought initially that Adam had kind of... And when targeting is a weird word. I don't mean it in, like, a nefarious way or anything like that. But the way, like, he sought her out and saw her, you know, per his perspective first. And kind of was just like, she's the one I want to, you know, at least talk to, whatever. And the only reason why I mentioned that is because then... he has the exact similar vibe with Kelly. And the only thing is that they're not just like in college and similar age now. Like he goes to the coffee house, like, oh, I'm gonna get coffee. Sees a woman that he's attracted to who has like she has dark eyes, like she's seen stuff. And then he's just like, yeah, you. And then he literally says this in the book, like, oh, I would have walked away. There wouldn't have been anything happening until she was like, oh, let me see this house you were talking about. And I'm like, oh my God, bro. Like, yeah, she handcuffs you to herself. Like,
I think he is one of those people who just wants to be wanted at any price. And if a beautiful woman who's been through some things and can be the muse to his writing gives him attention, like, that's just where he goes. And it makes me want to throw up, if I'm being honest. Like,
at no point did I like Adam. Like, at no point. At literally at no point.
There was a moment I felt bad. There were some moments where I truly felt bad.
Which one?
Because, okay, as we go on, Adam is, like, professing his innocence. He's like, listen, I would have never killed her. Then we find out that Kelly is pregnant, and he's like, I definitely wouldn't have killed her then. But everything...
Yeah, the how he goes when he finds out. And what's crazy, because Sarah's the one to tell him. And so it's just, like... That was, like, one of the few times that I had such, like, a guttural reaction to something happening. And it was just because it's, like... You can tell he didn't know.
Yeah.
And then he instantly realizes that it's like... Because remember, the reason why he was like, oh, I'm going to go to Sarah is because she decided to have a kid. But at the same time, it's like he didn't know that he technically already had started the family that he wanted, you know? And then lost it, like instantly.
But
I just...
As time goes on, like, he is literally in the middle of a mental breakdown through the majority of this book over being accused of his side piece's untimely removal from this earth. So it's like,
yeah.
At certain points when you're just like, I don't think he did it. And to know that he's going up, not just for her, but also his unborn child, and he truly wanted children. And to know that, like, if he's found guilty, that's the end of him. Like, you do have to feel, like, you have to feel like an iota of pity for him, because no one's listening to him. And then when he knows that something is wrong and he tries to take it into his own hands, he just makes it worse for himself.
So much worse. I definitely get that. Like, I never want to see an innocent man charged for something that they didn't do, right? And so I'm going to ask you this question. Did you ever think that Adam did it?
No.
Okay. I didn't either. I never ever thought that he did it. And for me, it was because I think, like, in like the first few chapters, whatever, it was just so distinctively when he was just like, oh, I woke up at 12:15 because of a car door shutting. So for me, the entire book, I was like, whoever shut that door is the killer.
Yes. Same.
Like, for me, the whole book, I was like, whoever shut that car door is the killer. I was like, I know Adam didn't do it. And now the thing that did throw me for a little bit of a loop was the fact that drugs were never found in his system. Like, he wasn't found drugged. However,
I knew that was wrong. I knew that was wrong.
I didn't, like, run with that as, like, a deterrent, just because the way he describes the experience of waking up before we know that there's a murder, before we know there's, like, even before there's a murder, I remember writing this down, and I wrote down, like, all the times that were noted, and I literally said, I don't think he did it, because we know from his perspective that he was in love with this woman. Like, he was delusional in his mind. He was ready to be, like, crash out on his marriage, defend her from her marriage, and, like, choose her. Like, he was in love with this woman. And he tells us about this multiple times. He was in love with this woman. They were living the ideal life that he wants, whereas it's very him-centered, which is a whole other thing. And he was basically just going back to DC specifically because of, like, the agreement he had with his wife in terms of, like, oh yeah, we're supposed to meet up, whatever. And so the way he described all those things, like, I remember when the scene happened, I was like, you idiot. I was like, she's dead this whole time. Like, I was like, you idiot. And then when he wrote that note, I was like, that's gonna be the first thing submitted to evidence. Like, but
I can't.
I never thought that he did it, just because of how he was just like, the car door is what woke him up. And he specifically talks about being like, oh my God, I must have blacked out. Like, I feel groggy. And then he was just like, well, I got to go back to DC. So I just never felt like he did it, especially as we know more about him as a human, that he's just so, I don't want to say passive because that's not really the right word. But I feel like the author tried to throw us off a little bit because he has, like, murderous thoughts a couple of times.
So did
like,
she.
When he's with, oh, she did too. And it was interesting when she did too. I was kind of just like, girl, that's like premeditated. Yeah, no,
it was,
but there's not one point in this book I ever thought that he killed her. But I also just,
can I be honest?
It's interesting. Yeah.
I thought the assistant did it for the longest of time. I thought Anne was the one. I thought she was the ghost face in all of this, because it was like, they kept hyping up how she wanted to be so much like Sarah.
So much like Sarah, yeah.
So much like Sarah. And then at certain points it was described as if she was dressing and imitating Sarah, but a cheaper version.
Hair change, yeah.
And it was very weird. And it was like she was always there. And then it was like, they kept mentioning how the night of everything, there was like she drank too much when they were out for drinks. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Maybe that's a cover up for her making out there. Like, I was like, I don't know.
So it's interesting. I never suspected Anne or Sarah of the murder because in the very beginning of the book, the alibi was established immediately. Like, we saw that happen.
Was it?
Right? No, but check this out. And this is where I have all the notes, right? Because remember I told you I took all the time notes. I was like, this is a murder thing. Let me take all the notes, right? And it says that, like, through the preliminary, like, time of death, whatever, that Kelly was killed between
like
11:30 p.m.
Yeah.
and 12:15 a.m. Again, 12:15 is car door shut. We know that's when Adam woke up. So I was like, okay. The way that she was packaged in the bed, I'm going to say, is like that took time in the aftermath, right? And that's where you can kind of assume that time gap, whatever. The reason why I never suspected Anne or Sarah is because from the beginning, it was like, oh, we were all hanging out, we were having drinks, and then we had drinks until at least midnight. And then we know the next timestamp that we see Sarah confirm is 1:45 a.m. So I was just like, okay, timeline-wise, she good. But now, if we fast forward, right? Ooh.
So here's my hypothesis was either Matthew or Anne helped Sarah take care of the side piece. Because I'll tell you exactly when. Chapter 39. And you know it's real if I'm writing down chapters. Mm-hmm. Chapter 39 is right after Adam did something stupid, I think. And Sarah makes her way home after dinner with Matthew. And she's just talking about being lonely. And she's had too much wine. And she loses track of time. She's in bed. And then there's this vague description of someone else coming into the house. And possibly having coitus with her.
Ain't no possible. That's what happened.
Listen, the way I read it, it had to stop and then go back and say, what did I just read to confirm that was what was happening? I said,
can we talk about this?
I said, red flag. I don't know what you did, but red flag.
Can we talk about, I literally have the note. And I'm like, okay, so who was in the house with Sarah? Like, question mark. And then I literally go, I'm very confused. And I was like, it didn't seem like assault. She seemed comfortable, familiar with their presence. Then I was like, was it Anne? I literally go, was it Anne? Because
I didn't know if it was Anne or the sheriff, but she just said that.
No, but they also never mentioned that it's a man in the house. She always says person. And then when they describe what happens, they said something inside. So I was just like, toys? Like what we, that's not gender specific. This one chapter, and like you said, you have to go back and read it. I read the chapter. Then I was like, nah, go back. I said, what happened? Because then I was just like, is she dreaming? Because I was just like, oh, maybe she's like mentally. And I was like, no, there's a human there. And girl, this threw me
she was
so
like,
hard. Because in the whole book, I was like, who is this person? We still don't know.
Like we were on the last chapter.
That irritated me that I still don't know who it is. Well, I think we could suspect. We could like infer who it is now.
I have a 99% surety I know who it was, but in the moment, because she describes like the ceiling turning black and blue, and I was like, well, black and blue is cops, so like it's got to be the sheriff. But then I was like, sheriffs wear brown, so it can't be that. The way I tried to break down chapter 39 with no real clues.
The way the thing I hooked on the most was that they never say that it's a man, but they say it's a person. And so I was just like, it could be Anne. Because remember,
single white female, I was so prepared.
So after they go out for drinks that night, Anne is very like apologetic.
Yes.
Like, I'm so sorry. And she's like, oh, we don't have to talk about it. It's fine. And so for me, I was just like, did Anne try to make a move? And then I was just like... Because, she idolized her so much. I was like, maybe she wants her, but then she's married. And then I was just like, oh. And then I thought about it, and I was just like, we know Adam is cheating. But in terms of, like, the power dynamic of a relationship that they have, I was like, Sarah statistically should be the one cheating, right? And I thought about it. I was like, she never really makes a point to be like, oh, I've never cheated on you. Like, she never, like, in all of the blame of Adam and his, like, mistress and his cheating and all this stuff, like, why it starts, Sarah never in any way insinuates or makes the statement like, oh, I've never cheated on you, I've been loyal this whole time. So that made me go, And then we have this scene that makes me go, okay, so she's been getting her kickback somewhere sometime. But then I'm like, who? She's too popular to just be like casual. She's too known to just be like, it's like, it has to be a trusted person. And then this is the first time that I suspected Matthew, not of killing Kelly, but this is the first time I suspected Matthew of following the trail that Anne set, which is that, oh, Matthew is gay, but he could be bi for you. And then I was like, is Matthew like low-key from college? And they were just like, oh, you studying? Let me help you out, girl.
Right, because then Anne also makes that joke, like, she makes a joke that almost makes it sound like Anne and Matthew have hooked up. So then I also was confused.
I never thought that they hooked up.
Well,
I thought that Anne couldn't stand Matthew because she could see how close him and Sarah were, and I think she was jealous of that. Because even as close as her and Sarah are, she has never had that kind of flow with them, with Sarah.
So after we hit chapter 39, I feel like we hit like a really like fast-paced section of the book, because then we go into Adam staring at the photo with the handwritten note on the back and realizing that it matches Anne's handwriting, and he takes off with an ankle monitor on and pops up at Sarah's office. And I call chapter 44 the Spider-Man meme, because everybody was pointing fingers. Everyone.
Can I tell you? So like I said, I read this book in a way that I was like, I was just watching the movie in my mind. That scene, I know it's not funny. It was funny. I laughed so hard. Okay. I was like, I feel like I'm finding humor where there's not humor there. I laughed so hard in that scene. So hard in that scene. And I literally read it and I literally walked away from it. I was like, I want to direct that scene. I was like, because it's so funny. I can see it. Like the performance art. Like I was just like, I know where everything is blocked out.
Yes.
I know I halfway casted the whole thing. I was like, oh, I was like, I want to direct this scene. Okay, but before we go into this scene, remember, he's already been meeting up with the reporter.
The journalist, Rebecca
something. Yeah. And so this is the thing about Adam. Before I want to get back into the scene, but this is the thing about Adam that irritates me from beginning to end. You are on trial for a murder that you claim you didn't commit. Your wife is your defense attorney.
Uh-huh.
You have already told her some things that are like too far to come back from for your marriage, which somehow he still thinks he has a shot, which I'm like, bro. But you have already given her the details of how you were inside another woman inside of their house. You know what I mean? But then you're not telling her key things that could actually help you get off of this thing. Like the thing with
Check this out.
Cop.
Check this out. Homie said, I'm the one who had the affair, but I can't trust you to do your job.
And then he said, I'm doing my own investigation.
So you're on a house arrest. You can't even go to the mailbox. What do you mean?
From your house? That irritated me so much because I was just like, bro. And it was just one of those things where I'm just like, if nothing else, share the information. There's a large chunk of information that Adam knew regarding the case that he never shared with Sarah.
Yeah.
Like the stuff with the two instances with him and Kelly's husband. Then everything that goes on with the investigator, like Sarah had to find out. And I was like, bro, you actually have a couple things that if you really wanted to get off from this trial, you should have shared with your lawyer because the dots could have been connected.
He never even told her that he heard a car door.
Never. And that's what I was just like, bro, like that literally insinuates that someone was there.
Okay, so he's working with this reporter, quote unquote, on his own personal...
I feel like I'm yelling. This book made me yell a lot.
He's working with this reporter on his own personal investigation of what happened that night when he comes across this threatening photo that he had received well before everything that says, end it or I will.
Dun, dun, dun.
And he looks at it.
I feel like I was using that sound effect for like everything. I text you that a couple times.
You know, she was over here like Olivia Benson being like, or were you? And I was like, mind your business.
Dun, dun, dun!
But he sees this photo. He realizes that the handwriting on the back of it matches Anne's handwriting. Mm-hmm. And first off, homie just goes on a crime spree. It's a great way to prove that you're innocent of a crime by doing crime.
Another crime. Again, this is where I have issues with Adam. Because at that point, the phone wasn't cut off yet. Like, oh, it wasn't? Yeah, but then the reporter was there, so you still could have called Sarah and be like, it's Aunt. Like, there were so many other options. Okay, so when he stole the car, you know what I thought he was going to go? To the police station and be like, listen, I got new things. I left
Are you stupid?
The perimeter because I couldn't. No, because I thought he was going to be like, listen, I know I violated my monitor, but it's because I couldn't reach you. I have new things for the case. And that's what I thought. I thought he was driving to the police station. So when he drove, again, across state lines and went to her office, I was like, bro, you're so stupid. They're going to put you in jail no matter what now because you're breaking laws.
So he breaks his house what? Oh my God, house arrest. And
House arrest,
he
yeah.
goes to the office, and it is Spider-Man meme because he's like, I could just envision his hair flopping around. He's disheveled, and he sees Anne, and he's just like, "You killed her."
Okay, but remember, while he's doing this, Sarah is setting up
with
a little shell game with the prosecuting attorney. With like, oh, hopefully he'll do my work for me, and Adam screws it up. I was like, bro, she actually is low-key not helping, but kind of helping your case, and you're still screwing it up.
Like, she was, like, laying the groundwork, and every time she laid the groundwork, he was just like, nah, forget it.
Nah, so I want to make it harder to get me off.
So he's out here aggressively charging against someone while he's already broken house arrest, and he's like, you're
committed for murder. Why would you do anything in any way attacking someone, especially another woman? Bro, I literally, like, I can't tell you how many times I was just like, he's an idiot. Like, I can't tell you how many times I said Adam is an idiot while reading this.
So then Adam gets decked by Bob, Sarah's co-worker, who's at this point a pain in the butt. Allegedly.
Mm-hmm. I have so many thoughts.
And then Nick looks at Bob and goes, you're the brother of Kelly's, the side piece's ex-husband who passed away.
Yeah.
In some questionable
circumstances. Gasp, like,
and now everyone has come out because chaos has ensued.
Chaos.
Sarah and Matthew are there with the prosecution. And then
who's just sitting there witnessing this, like, yeah, this case is slam dunk.
And then
at this point, it's an alley-oop because it was already a slam dunk. Now he's like, nah, let my friend see it too.
And then at this point, the sheriff arrives with not only the aggressive black man deputy, but the aggressive husband/widow of his side piece.
I was also wondering, I was like, are there only 3 policemen at this, in this whole area? Because why do you keep sending the 2 that are a problem every time?
But I also was like, why isn't Hobie still on suspension? He just, like, Adam's face isn't even healed yet.
And then, and this is the thing, this man is just such blind rage because Adam just, like, yells something out, unconfirmed, nothing. Yeah! And this man goes, let me go try and kill him too.
So, fists are flying, people are being attacked, and then finally, the sheriff gets Adam under control. But now accusations are flying, so the sheriff just goes, everybody's coming downtown. I don't know.
Come, let's go. Get on the highway.
I couldn't take it. It was pure chaos.
Craziness. Oh, also, because at this point, they already would have done the arraignment trial. Do you think that Sarah was pregnant while she was throwing up?
No.
You think it was stress throw up?
She literally says, I've been living on caffeine, alcohol, and no sleep.
Oh, okay.
If I don't have water for a day, my tummy hurts. What do you mean?
Okay, I thought it was good. I thought it was like, surprise pregnancy. That wasn't so much a surprise because we were there for the conception kind of vibes.
In my mind, I was like, Sarah probably on birth control. She a liar.
Okay. Oh, let's go back to this. Right? Let's go back to this. I remember when she was like, oh, I want to have the baby, like whatever. And he was so excited because he's an idiot. Oh boy, fell into that trap. 2 feet, no parachute, jumped straight in. Okay, no. But I thought this was so interesting because Sarah's a very intelligent woman. Mm-hmm. Career is like she's made a name for herself.
Yes.
It was interesting because she comes to the office and she is being very open about her and Adam now trying for a kid. And I wanted to be like, girl, shut up. Like that's career. Like I was like, listen, as a woman, I hate to say this, but the reality is a woman in a workplace, especially when there's men gunning for your job, you can't even mention the P word because they gonna be like, oh, you gonna be out for how many months? Let me slide on in. So I was just like, why is she saying this when she doesn't even have like the whatever? And then of course we know later on, she established the relationship on her end.
Yes.
And it was just like, oh, she's slick.
So getting through all of this nonsense,
mm-hmm.
this is where I start to hit the wall.
Okay.
Because we have...
You hit the wall way later than I did.
Because we have so many good chapters, right? Like, because here's the thing. Homie breaks house arrest, right? And he gets taken back to the station in Virginia. And the husband of the side piece pops in for a chit chat and magically leaves the door open. And I just went, what? And then somehow no one was paying attention to Adam. And he was able to just walk out of the station into the woods. And I just said, did I miss something? Am I the problem?
That entire chapter of his perspective of that, and I was like, this can't be happening. That was just my mind. I was like, there's no way. I was like, he must be dreaming. And then when he made like a makeshift like shelter in the middle of a tree, I was just like, this is real. And then like he was like, oh, the ants want me to keep them warm. I'm providing shelter for them. I was like, I cannot with this.
Well, that was when I just went, oh, he's having a mental breakdown. Like, homie is not okay in this moment.
This was my thing, and I don't mean to be dismissive of this because I definitely understand the situation and how you can be pushed to the limit, but I was like, there's multiple times I have to remind myself of the timeline, and I was just like, this man is crumbling very quickly in multiple instances. But then, of course, we learned later on in Sarah's perspective where she was just like, yeah, he's gonna spiral. And like that's how he is.
Let's be real.
I mean, I think
homie was dainty to begin
on.
with. Homie was dainty to start the story. There was no strong base to hold him down by the time he was going, oh, I'm facing 35 to life.
Yeah. Because even I think we established it earlier on in the book where he was like, oh, I love Kelly. I'm leaving my wife. I made that decision. And then literally 2 hours later, he was like, oh my God, my wife loves me and wants to have a family. This is all I ever wanted. So now I'm going to stay here with that. And I was just like, he like mentally flip-flops so extremely. And like, not just like a little bit like, oh, let's see how it, like he flip-flops hard. And that's honestly his own demise in a way throughout. Now, this is very interesting. Adam is an idiot, but he was actually on to a couple things a couple of times, but he just never put everything all together.
Yeah. And it's
because
really...
even when he was like, oh, I'm doing my own investigation, because he's like, I don't think you're doing everything, he wasn't wrong. And then there was another time that he was talking about... where he was talking about like, oh, everyone cheats, but like that's not like murder, whatever. Like there was a couple of times where he had like notes on certain things.
It was like he was making some sort of sense somewhere in there.
He was going through like enough mental reels where he was like catching on to a fact here and there. He was never putting the puzzle pieces on the same floor. Like he was like and I was like, he's an idiot, but he's not the complete.
Nah, he an idiot. And here's my reason why. So, he gets free of the jail and spends a night in the forest. And then manages to steal clothes from a trucker, go back into the forest, goes to a gas station, and then makes several phone calls being like, Ma, I escaped. Why are you saying this out loud in public? I don't know. And then he goes to the journalist's house. And this is where I just went, you didn't think this through. You stole her car. You think the cops were just going to drop it off and not keep an eye on things? How did we get here, Adam? And
also, when he called his mom, I was like, why don't you just go to her? Like, you know, of any and all people, she's the one that's riding for you the most.
I genuinely thought he had changed his mind. When he couldn't get the journalist on the phone, I genuinely thought he had changed his mind.
That was the next logical thing.
And
where's your hotel? Come pick me up. I'm in the woods. Like, it was...
None of it made sense.
Adam.
So then he
Adam.
gets to the journalist Rebecca's house, and Rebecca's like, yo, you gotta go. And she's freaking out.
It's interesting because I was like, I wonder if she knew it was him. Because he never announced anything. He just like knocking on her door in the middle of the night, like crazy.
No, this is broad daylight. This is broad daylight.
I thought it was in the middle of the night because he waited. Because I thought he stole the clothes in broad daylight. Then he waited for nighttime to steal the map. And then he was walking at night again to walk along.
No, he was saying like he might have to. But it's from the way I read it is that it was the middle of the day. Because he was in like this nice little neighborhood and he spotted her car parked outside of a driveway. And he was like, there we go.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like the middle of the night. And I was like, bro, that's even scarier. Also, can we talk about like when she does let him in? Why are you kissing her?
That's where I was headed. Homie. Like at this point, you tried to make a child with your wife. You accidentally made a child with your side piece. And now your journalist is next on your list. At this point...
And I literally was just like, that is so stupid. And he was like, oh, I hope she knows it's a comforting kiss. And I was like, would you kiss him if he was a man? Like, that makes no logical sense, sir.
I was just like, are you okay? You're not okay. And I know that, but are you okay?
He's not okay. But it was just like, where in your mind does this make sense? Where do you feel like this is comforting? You're knocking on her door after you stole her car. And just showing up unannounced. She was in a towel because it sounded like she was just like right out the shower. Yep. And now you're invading her personal space. I was like, bro, for all intents and purposes, you were on trial for murder. You believe you didn't do it. She maybe sort of believes you didn't do it. But if nothing else, if you don't see the fact that you are a potential threat, and now you're kissing a woman in her house, unwelcome, like she didn't be like, oh, kiss me. No, she multiple times was like, you should go.
Yeah.
You should leave.
Yeah.
And he's like... Yeah.
So he gets...
Okay, so I didn't know that it was daytime. I thought it was nighttime. So now this goes to my next question. While he was getting rearrested...
Who was in the bushes?
We don't know who's in the bushes! Thank you! Because I was like... So we not gonna know who's in the bushes?
Wait. Was it Bob?
That's what I think it is. Again, I don't know why he's in the bushes... But I do think it is because remember, that's who technically is who paid her to create the connection. But I'm just like, but sir, why are you in the bushes? So like, how did you get there? Where's your car? And then now I'm thinking, okay, if it was him,
or was it
that why
Scott?
She had to go take a shower? No,
because remember, Scott comes to him the day before and asks who he's been working with. And Adam tells him literally the day before about Rebecca. So it might have been Scott showing up to talk to her. And then in the middle of it all, watches this all fall out and goes, you know what? I changed my mind.
It's very interesting. Well, not interesting. It's actually very annoying. I don't like that we have unanswered questions. Because even when we do find everything else out and we find like all the details, there's still some things unaccounted for.
Yes.
Like who was in Sarah's bed officially. Of course, we can infer. And also who's in the bushes.
I will get into that.
Okay.
So he gets rearrested and the trial starts. And I'm actually upset that they didn't include the trial in the book. Although at this point I hit a wall. I was kind of hoping for a little something, a little clue for me to figure it all out.
I was waiting for like the legal drama for Sarah to be Sarah.
Yes.
And I don't like her opening statement. I don't even feel like it was all that like
it was
phenomenal.
Meh.
Yeah, I was like, you just counted a bunch of stuff on your hand. All my lawyer friends are gonna eat me alive. I'm so sorry, y'all, but I was just like, girl, bye. You just went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, so what makes me upset is it is chapter 61. I pulled my book up for this. Chapter 61. I have to sit through the world's longest opening statement. It's chapter 60. That's the opening statement. Chapter 61 is when they come out with the verdict, right? I'm saying this because I'm looking at the book. And I was like, are you serious? Like, that's all we got of the legal drama? And
it just time jumps. Yeah, like...
Chapter
so
62?
a couple of time jumps towards the end, yeah.
Chapter 62 is 11 years later, and he's about to be taken out for his crimes. And I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? I need answers. And this is the chapter that enraged me the most.
Really?
Because, so it is, I don't even know if I could say this on YouTube, but it is the day where he's going to be injected for his crimes. Mm-hmm. And so Sarah goes to the jail to watch this, and there's a switch. There's a complete personality switch. Her hair is different. She's talking about getting married tomorrow because today she's going to be a widow, which personally, I don't think that's legal, but none of my business. And she shows up and she makes it clear that she hasn't seen this man since the day they took him away.
No, she has.
No.
She hasn't seen him in 10 years.
10 years.
She
So
saw him a couple times after.
Doing the dutiful wife thing, she said. Mm-hmm. And she's talking to him and she's asking him questions like, do you regret it? Do you have remorse? Like, he's trying to like connect with her one last time. He's lost his mind. It's clear because at this point he's like, I'm still innocent. I don't understand why you won't help me. Okay. Mm-hmm. What doesn't make sense here, knowing it now, is that like, he's been in there for 11 years and she has an 8-year-old daughter at this point. How did he not know that she had moved on?
How would he know? Who's giving him updates?
His mother.
The other one that visit. But Sarah's not hanging out with the mom. She blocked her.
I know, but that type of mama is not going to let this one go. But also, why didn't the mother hire...
She has no rights for their life. Sarah removed her from it. And now, like, looking back, that's why I think Sarah pushed her to like, slap her. Because she wanted Eleanor to want to have space.
Here's my thing. I'm not a mother right now, but I'm telling you right now, if my son goes to jail for Bobby Schmurder and is found guilty, I'm hiring every lawyer possible for a retrial. I don't care.
Right, but she never wanted Sarah initially, and I don't think she wanted Sarah to try it again. So I think she definitely did try to do everything, but I don't think she reached out to Sarah again.
But that's what I'm saying is he never had another lawyer. It was only Sarah, and he makes that clear because he keeps saying, I've been asking you. And she goes, we had that conversation right after you were taken away. It's not happening. Mm-hmm.
But that's not his only thing. Remember, he tried to do the appeals too through the like the Innocence Project and stuff like that.
Right.
So remember, we hear multiple times of lawyers saying no. So like Sarah's obviously the official lawyer and everything like that. But the mom does.
You're telling me that you couldn't find a lawyer on the back of a bus to take over this case. You're telling me that no one wanted to give it a try, Jay? No one? I call BS.
It seems so cut and dry.
I call BS. Because here's the thing. The third person's DNA was never introduced into the system. Also, Sarah states that there was lots of evidence that she never entered. So if anyone had taken a look at the case and saw that there was evidence that was never entered into the court filings, that itself is cause for them to reopen the case.
All things valid, yes. But then let's also remember this. The sheriff has been so
Barney
adamant about keeping the close... What?
Sorry, it's a reference to Andy Griffith. You remember the deputy who's just an idiot, Barney?
Oh, yes. So he's been adamant about, like, this case is closed so many times. Of course, now we know why. Like, I think it's so funny in the scene where Adam drives down to the law office and everything like that.
Yeah.
And, like, there's multiple reasons to open back up the case. And the sheriff is like, this case was closed.
Sheriff was like, leave me be.
So I think there's, like, multiple things working against Adam to be like, we ain't looking at this. But at the same time, I cheated. And I realized by accident that I guess there's a second book to this. So I said, So I read the blurb of the second book, and so that made me go, okay, I get it.
I don't know what's happening in the second book, so I don't know about that. But what I will say is,
they find new evidence in the case.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But he already...
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Hold.
No, exactly.
No, I'm saying no.
Exactly. That's why I was like, oh, but I was like, nah. But I cheated because I just so happened when I was looking for something else. I saw that I was like, oh, there's a sequel. And I was like, let me read this blurb and see what's happening. I was like, ooh. So yeah.
So going back to the book we did read.
Yeah.
We say goodbye to Adam just as he is putting it all into place.
Yeah.
And then we find...
I'll be honest, that little 10-minute countdown she did with him was cold.
Demonic, bro. Demonic.
I was like, and the way he was like, oh, she shot a gun for me. And he was like, and she was like, I wish he would stop doing that.
But then him going, wait a minute, this isn't right. Something is wrong.
Yeah, the timing isn't right. Like the way, I think that was kind of like the final thing to be like, this is calculated. And this is what I'm saying, where Adam was starting to pull information here and there. He doesn't all put it together. Because at one point, he literally said, I'm set up too perfectly. This has to be someone that knows me, that knows her, that knows the house, that knows our habits. Because it was all so perfect. They came in the house, they didn't break in. He starts to kind of go, wait a minute, I need to look closer. And just never, yeah.
So we say goodbye to Adam, and Sarah goes outside and gets into her car with her man, Bob, and their daughter. And we find out not only did she take care of the side piece, but she took care of her own mama. And I said, good day. I'm done.
Okay, this is the note I have about, Sarah. And I was like... about the fact that she off the other one. So literally at around 66%ish, so it was right before Adam gets the car and starts doing all the things. I was like, I need to know who did it because I can't take any more suspects, and I can't. So literally I skipped ahead and I read the last chapter, but I didn't read the end, the beginning of the chapter. I read just the end, and just knowing who it was made me go, what? Okay, now I need to know what happens. That was the thing I needed to keep myself
the way
going.
I want to just end this podcast right now, knowing that you skipped ahead, our friendship is on the line right now. I'm telling you right now.
Listen, I needed to do what I had to do, all right?
You didn't have to do that. You chose.
I did. No, I could not.
You could have called me.
More suspects.
You could have called me.
You wouldn't tell me anything.
I would have held you down, homie, and you know that.
No, because I did reach out and you were like, shut up because you're further along than me. And I was like, all right.
That was hours earlier.
No, it wasn't. Oh, okay. So literally I was like, okay, I skipped ahead. And I was like, yo, it was Sarah this whole time. Knowing it's Sarah, a little bit past halfway through the book was so enthralling. Because I got to read the whole rest of the book with all the details.
When the book ended, I had to just go, I don't know what I read just now. I don't know.
Now, see, I didn't have that feeling. I did not have that feeling. Because I knew it was basically just cluing all the things in. Honestly, for me, and this is because I'm a PAB, I would love to know who the killer is before I ever read a book again. Next time, I'm actually just going to skip to the end and then read it. Because then it's so much juicier. Anyway.
We're not reading another book like this then. Because I will be damned if I have to put up with that nonsense. Snap.
So I was like, Sarah's a killer. She ain't new to it. She's true to it.
Well, I knew something was off in the flashback when she talks about how she saw her mom passed away in the bed after an overdose, and she just stood there for an hour and then called the cops. I said, you stood there?
I thought that was interesting.
And then when she talks about how there were 4 needles in her arm, I was like, what? That don't make no sense. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So
okay, so now that we know who it is, there's a couple of things. After Adam takes the car, goes to the law office and starts pointing fingers all around, and everyone now comes to the police station. When they were doing the interrogation of Anne, I thought it was very... So Matthew is here now, right?
Yes.
Matthew questioned Sarah throughout the book.
Yes.
He questioned Sarah about her wanting a knickknack. Also, I've been team Matthew from the beginning of the book because he referred to children as knickknacks. I was like, sir, we can be friends.
I told you he was the realest. Immediately, I was like, I like you.
I was like, sir, we can be friends. So he's been questioning Sarah throughout. And Sarah actually gets a little irritated at some point about it, but he literally kind of just goes like, I just want to make sure you're making the best decisions because you're very close to this, all these things like that, right? And one of the things that Matthew does is he asks her for the legal reasons behind it, which I think is very interesting because I think he understands, like, she is having an emotional into it, but it's like, that's natural, but that's not her nature, but it's happening. And so I think he was starting to recognize certain parts that were very like
off,
put on by Sarah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think he was just noticing because they're that close of friends, but I think he was dismissing them because he was like, this is an extreme situation. Mm-hmm. But I think he kept trying to like warn and be like, maybe you shouldn't be doing this because I am noticing you're being a little bit off. And then when he was like, okay, let's look at this just factually. And then when she was able to provide like legal reasons why, he was like, okay, all right, you know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I mentioned that because when they do the interrogation of Anne, Matthew is there. Mm-hmm. And it's the first time that I think Sarah gets insight as to why she thought to be suspicious of the cops. But of course she has the wrong cop because she thinks it's Hudson, the
black guy,
husband's,
Marcus.
The husband's partner. Yes. Because that's also their alibi. She has the wrong cop of suspicion, but she has the right suspicion. But Matthew is the one that actually said, wait a minute. And he caught it first go round being in this space. He was like, that's not a question. And also, I thought it was very interesting. So this is one of the times where Sarah has like a murderous thought, like very vicious thought. I remember it's funny because I wrote the note first and I was just like, what? And then we realized it's like her thought process. And I was like, that was excessive. For Anne when she's like jumps in, like she wants to like break into the interrogation room and like spin her by her hair, break the glass, and then use the glass. And I was like, girl, that was imaginative. But I thought it was very interesting that she had the urge to do the jump in on the interview right after Anne established their alibi on record that they were out drinking until right after midnight. And it wasn't until after that she started to get like, Sarah started to get like chatty and talking, because I was just like, oh, she needed that entered in evidence legally because she has her alibi. They're like, hey, I was out in DC drinking with my assistant. And then now her assistant on record in interrogation has that done. And as soon as that has happened, I felt like she was trying to distract so that way Anne never goes, wait a minute, what time was it? You know what I mean? Or has any sort of like clarity. And then when they did the whole thing with Bob, I thought it was also interesting that after the interrogation, it's the first time we see Sarah express like
remorse,
emotions, really. Yeah. No, I wouldn't say remorse, like emotions, because she's pretty like.
That's not true. She cries a couple of times and she talks about how the dam is breaking and she needs to hold it just for a little bit longer.
Yes, the just a little bit longer one, but at the same time, there's other times when I feel like some of those emotions are put on, and it's because she knows she has to put on a show.
I mean, like, now looking back at it, yes, because you skipped ahead, but in the moment reading it, no. Your perspective of this book is completely skewed by the fact that you read the ending before you finished.
Oh,
it.
Absolutely.
So you can't come back now and be like, I find this interesting. Yeah, of course you find it interesting. I'm
coming back after we established it together because I'm going back on my notes. Okay, so anyway, but the thing was like with Bob, I thought it was very interesting, and I was just like, I was like, so no one is gonna think twice of the fact that she used these specific terms in reference to that interrogation. And I was like, she literally said knife, stab, and twisted in the womb in reference to the interrogation that Sheriff Stevens had with Bob. And then after she leaves, she was like the first time where she was kind of just like, I'm so sorry, to like him going through that emotional, like, whatever. So that was the first time that made me kind of go,
The only thing that made me go, after the interrogations is that Bob comes in. Well, no, there's like twice. Because Bob comes in once and goes, is there anything I can help with on the case? We need to get this wrapped up. And he gets a phone call in her office. And she goes, oh, is that more press? And he goes, nothing I can't handle. And just like leaves it be. And then after the horrible interrogation, he comes in and starts like putting out folders and stuff. And I was like, that's weird. Why are they both being nice to each other after an entire book of hating each other?
Yes. So to that point too, in hindsight, I think they put on that they didn't like each other, so no one ever connect them to being together.
Absolutely.
But also now, I remember they had so many like random meetings, and I was like, what are they meeting about? And every time that they finished a meeting, Anne would always ask like, oh, what happened? And she was like, nothing, it's fine. And now I'm like, yo, they were plotting on office grounds this whole time.
No.
Because they never, unless, pillow talk counts, but for the most part, they never meet like outside of the office. Again, probably pillow talk they were.
Yeah.
But
no. So
they have multiple meetings in the office. Multiple meetings.
The only meetings they have are the ones that we read.
No, so the very first one, which is Anne being like, oh, he keeps asking me to do stuff, whatever.
Yes.
And then there's one where she was like, I want a meeting with Bob. And so she has him come in. And we presume we're hearing the whole meeting, but we don't know if we're hearing the whole meeting. Because multiple times, Anne always asks later, hey,
Jay,
what happened? And Sarah never tells her.
I think you're just suspicious of everything now.
Honestly, I'm suspicious of everything in real life now. This is such like a mental space to be in. I literally was like, I need to run straight back to romance after this because I can't. I feel, first of all, the amount of notes I wrote is full on an essay. It's full on an essay. Like my notes app, I have to scroll so far. The amount of suspects I have, like every character that was introduced as a suspect, I have like them, their name, why, and there's too much mind games.
Your neurospicy is coming out really hard. Not saying that there's a bad thing, but it's coming out.
I was trying to just read it for vibes, and I was like, I need to keep track.
So now that you've read it, we've discussed it. What are you rating it?
You're going first. I told you this from the beginning.
Yeah, but we talked about it already. We did the group project.
Yes, but what did you rate it?
No, it's you. You go first. Nice try.
Why do I have to go first?
Because you always go first. Don't ruin the things. All right, this is a
system.
system.
Always
you like
go
systems.
First.
Yeah. Nice try.
I think you can break them sometimes.
Nope. You like your systems. You like your systems.
I think I have to rate it a 4.
You have to rate it a 4, or you want to rate it a 4?
I don't know, because you won't tell me your rating, so I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just winging it at this point. I think I have to rate it a 4. It's interesting because I thought it was a good book. Like I was locked in. This is absolutely something I would want to direct because it was just so fun. Like there's multiple scenes I think you can have a lot of fun with. I don't know if I will reread it for fun. Although the curiosity of now knowing the ending and then rereading it from the beginning might be a good thing to do. But it was also like a long reading process for me. And it's crazy because it's like page-wise, it's not that dense, but the processing of information was, and my mind could never like chill out. And so it is interesting to see like what a reread, knowing what happens again, how that would feel. But I don't know if I want to go through that again. But it was really well written. It was a good book. I think it's a 4 for me. Now, this book makes me open to reading other thrillers. 1,000%. I thought it was a really great experience. I don't know, like this. I think this was a great like introduction to thriller book for me because like the body element of it wasn't like crazy or gruesome. Like I never felt like the tingly on the back of my neck, like, oh, someone's in the house feeling, which I feel like in my mind I associate with thrillers. So I liked that it didn't creep me out, and I appreciated that I wasn't like scared. To be fair, I wasn't scared, but I still couldn't sleep after reading it, but it's just because my mind would not shut up. Like there were just so many things running. I think there's still 2 unanswered questions minimum based off of like what we read, and it's basically bushes in bed. But it was an enjoyable process. Like I had a lot of emotions. I did a lot of processing while reading it, and like that's great. But I don't know if I want that in a fun experience. Like I don't know, like that's very taxing to just be reading as like, ooh, let me go read a book. Like yeah, let me go bust out my dissertation and read the book. So it's just not my genre. But this makes me open to the genre more. But I still don't think it'll be my go-to for fun. But I think the book was really well written. Like I don't have other thrillers to compare it to. But I think it was really well written. So I think I'm gonna say a 4.
Okay. I would give it a 3, like a very strong 3. I don't know why you're making this face. I would say I thought it was written well. You know, there were a lot of clues, like there were a lot of hints of like who it could be and things like that. But I think overall, what I like in a thriller is having the case and having the evidence presented to me and helping me like try and put those puzzle pieces together. Whereas this just made me suspicious of everyone and everything. And I just felt like by the time we got to the end and it's revealed that it's Sarah and Bob, it just felt like, okay, but how did we get there? Like, just a random paragraph explaining it to me doesn't really do well in this situation. But I did read the acknowledgments. It was purely, I saw one sentence and I was like, I'm interested in this. And so Geneva was saying when she first wrote this book, it was back in 2020. This random UK publisher picked it up and published it without any true editorial process. And then she came back recently and rewrote it to what we read. And so I think a lot of those pieces would have been answered had it originally been like really looked at and combed through. Whereas this was like a trying to fix something that's already created moment.
That's already out. Okay, yeah.
So,
I definitely know how that is.
So I don't think this has turned me off from her writing, but this just wasn't one of those ones where I got all that I needed out of it. Had there been kind of more information, I would have probably given it a 4. Because the character of Adam was fantastic to read on paper. Is he a great person? No, but like character-wise, great. But yeah, I definitely would have, it's a 3, maybe a 3.5.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, okay, I can see that. It's interesting because, like I said, I do feel like I walked away with some questions unanswered, and I don't like that.
I don't like that.
I also don't like you were saying, I do wish I got more of like the legal drama. She is a defense attorney, and her being a main character, I did want some more like court scenes, I guess. And also like the time, you know how I feel about time jumps, forward or backwards, but like the time jumps just felt like
weird.
I don't want to say a cop-out.
It was like she didn't know how the legal process would go, so she just kind of like jumped over them.
I mean, honestly, instead of doing it bad, I'm not mad at that. But at the same time, now I did read that it was like a re-release, and so I didn't really go. I try sometimes to read some of the author notes and stuff, but when I saw how long those acknowledgements were, I was like, oh no, thanks everybody, that's fine.
I skimmed it. It was purely like she was saying like she had a deep dark secret to reveal, so I read the first paragraph and then I jumped to where it said it.
But this is a re-release, so I'm not really doing it here, and I was like, okay, miss, I don't care. But I will say this. This book, and honestly the blurb, and it had, so I read it digitally, and so it had like an excerpt from the next book. I almost got sucked into the next one, and I was like, oh no, I can't do it. And so it was just like, she's a good writer. Like, I was locked in. It's very intriguing, especially something that's not in my lane. Like, I think we know enough about me to know I like what I like.
Yeah.
So the fact that this is something that's not on my radar and it's not in my wheelhouse and I enjoyed it, I think speaks large volumes. So there are some things I do wish I did know by the end of the story, and that, like, even a little bit more about Jenna Way. Like, even like Sarah tells us why we won't know about it, because she was like, whatever Jenna did in Wisconsin is none of my business. And I was like, like, I want to know because Bob
you're just being nosy at that point, Jay. You're just being nosy.
I am nosy. That is not a secret. I love drama that is not mine. So it was just like, okay. Also, so random, because I know that we've already like did our breakdown. But something I thought was very interesting was when Sarah goes to that house after she basically was like babysitting Bob or Adam, where she was just like, you spending money, you doing all these things like that. It's interesting when she looks at the list of numbers, she like lingers a little bit, and Adam notices. And it's very interesting.
She saw Bob's number.
She recognizes Bob's number. And Adam was so drunk while doing it that he called him, probably heard his voice too, and then he just goes, wrong number. And I'm pretty sure Sarah just gave him the heads up, like, you're going to get a call tonight. And also homegirl was like, cut that phone off.
That's why she had it cut off.
She said, cut that phone off. Yeah.
Great. Like, looking back on it, it's great the way she like wove certain things in as hints. Which is kind of like the whole fun of reading a psychological thriller. This just wasn't my number one.
Got it. Okay. Obviously, we know I love fluff. I love like happy ever after. I do. For me, when I have a little bit more like drama, we don't know what's happening. I like it to be more in a spy setting. Like we kind of did, like even when we did like The Spy and I or Mr. Spy, whichever we did like for the first episode of season 2. Like for me, even with that one, that didn't even have as many like questions and stuff as I like in like a spy novel. You know what I mean? So I feel like this gave me that essence of like never really knowing what's happening. There's someone we're rooting for, all these things like that. But honestly, one of the main characters being the villain in the end, I almost kind of didn't like that because I was like, girl, I was kind of rooting for you the whole time.
I love me a good villain.
I don't know. For me personally, and again, I don't read these often, it was like annoying that I got a first-hand account of the killer the whole time and didn't know. I mean, I knew halfway through, but like didn't know. I was waiting for it to be another suspect the whole time and it just wasn't. So I don't know. Like I said, this book makes me open to the genre more than I ever would have been. I think Geneva's writing is really good, really good. And I almost got sucked into the next book by accident. So yes, to her as an author and to the thing, but I don't know. I think I'd have to be like more like, I don't want to say forced, but I think I have more to have an incentive to read this again by choice. Because I like if I'm reading for fun, I'm not. No. But I am more open to it than I ever was before doing this.
Well, normally I sign these off by telling you to be like a character, but in this case, I'm gonna tell you, don't be like any of the characters in this book.
Matthew is solid.
Matthew was out here doing illegal things to find evidence. So once again,
you're right. He was a lobbyist. My bad.
Once again, be the complete opposite of everyone in this book. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will catch you in the next one, which will hopefully be a little bit lighter, a little fluffier, and a little bit less Bobby Schmurder.
A little less knives.
Not like knives. Anyways, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Bye.